Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, good afternoon. So, Gina, what if we are going to start a class? Yes, and then if through the process of the class, someone has a question or I am not clear in my speaking, so you can participants can lift their physical hand or the Zoom hand, and then you will, Gina, warn me there is a question or yes, is that an agreement? We can do it that way, because when I'm cooking I'll be busy with my vegetables or whatever, and I might not pay attention to everything.
Yes. Exactly, that's just what we'll do.
Good. All right, so thank you. So good afternoon, or good afternoon if here it's good afternoon. I think in Israel it's good afternoon, somewhere else it might be good evening or good morning. So my name is Jean, and I am one of the main cooking teachers of the Concord Institute in London. And the Concord Institute is the educational branch of the Community Health Foundation, which is the first macrobiotic whole food organization which took birth in London in 1976, I think, with Bill Tara. So, and I was about I was about 26 at that time, and then I entered this new world of whole foods and macrobiotic at that time, and so I had a long journey, working with the Community Health Foundation, learning how to cook, learning to be. And then in 1997, I think, the Concord Institute, which is the educational branch of the Community Health Foundation, took birth. And then we developed, or we expanded a large body of work where we brought in, and that's what I do in my cooking today. You see, that's how I come from my cooking. Of course, I'm a cooking teacher, but also what we are doing and what I have learned is maybe there are some techniques one needs to know in cooking. Maybe there is, of course, we need to know the ingredients. We need to understand food, but also we need to have a certain attitude, where we are coming from when we are cooking, who we are, who is a cook cooking, because that's a very important part of cooking. So in the Concord Institute, we have various forms of disciplines, where we are where we approach this, we approach cooking and body work or self-expression together. And then in my kitchen, I need to have a good self-expression to express my passion about food, my passion and my understanding of what whole food cooking is. So before I continue, I want to present my assistant here, because of course, Matt has been really helping me all the afternoon to prepare the class. So it's Matt Warren. Hello. And then you want to say a few words, why you assist here, and what was your experience in the Concord Institute?
Yeah, so I've been around Concord Institute since about 17 years now.
Can you come a little closer to the microphone?
Speak a bit loud
yes.
in the microphone.
I've been assisting with the Concord Institute for around 17 years now, and I mean the culinary side of it has really taken quite a root in me, and the value that I've got and the disciplines from learning how to chop, cooking, really developing general kitchen skills, and just just getting the nourishment from the food has just been an ongoing. It's always an ongoing inquiry and an ongoing passion that I have with food, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Matt. And so Matt will support me in giving me all the ingredients I need and everything through the class. You know, so we are going to start cooking, and then whilst I'm preparing the food which I'm going to present now, you know, I will bring some comments on the why and the how I do things, but also, you know, maybe about different ingredients, why I choose some ingredients and some not, and what really I understand what whole food cooking is. So I will weave in through my demonstration of the dish these comments. So what we wanted to do today, what's been proposed, that we are cooking together, or that at least the cooking lesson that you may do now or later another time at your leisure, is late summer. I use this expression because we are in the beginning of September. A late summer bean and vegetable stew. So, you know, question of late summer. We are in London. I am in London today, and it's very hot. It's more than late summer. We have about 26 degrees Celsius, so it's quite warm. But nevertheless, you know, the dish I'm preparing, because we are nevertheless, even if the temperature is kind of warm, we are entering a new season now. We have already, we can feel in the air the season has changed, and we are going towards, you know, what we will call the autumn. And so the dish I am proposing today is opening this new season with the various, you will see, with the various vegetables and ingredients that I'm using. So I'm going to, so now what I'm going to do is to present the dish. I'm going to explain what we are going to do. Then we are going to start to prepare it step by step, cook it, and then we will see what comes at the end. So I said that it's, so you may have received, if you are in this program now, you may have received a recipe. So you have some guide already if you have these printed copies in front of you of what we are going to do. And if not, following the session, you will receive a little booklet with everything details, where you can then go and repeat this recipe at your leisure.
So I'll just say that anyone who would like the recipes now, you can find them on the website, thericehouse.com. And when you are in the website, just look for the Whole Health Macrobiotic Forum. And then you'll see Jean's beautiful face, and at the bottom, his recipes. We'll also be sending them out a few days after this presentation.
Yes, and whilst I will be presenting the dish, you know, because I have to cook and I will also explain my role in this culinary school, or the culinary school of the Concord Institute, the Concord School of Culinary Arts, and then we will see why. So that's what we are going to do: speak and cook, and speak and cook together. So I'm going to do then, so time to time, you will see that now I am speaking, so you see me. Then next, when I'm working on the board, I change camera, and then I will change camera when we are in the cooker. So several times the camera will switch, you see. And so now I switch my camera to my working surface, and then we shall see what we are going to prepare, you see. Okay, so here, I have to change my view. bear with me because we have always a few seconds to change. Yes. Okay. So here we have a plate here with various vegetables. The vegetables I'm going to use in the stew. I have a zucchini, you know, so it's either yellow zucchini or green zucchini, a zucchini. So I have also a different kind of zucchini we have today. You know, it's a very pale green, very delicate because they are squash. They are late summer squash. We don't have, you know, also pumpkin are still are almost coming to be ready. Now in this, it's preferable to have squash. So we have this. We have this is a leek, it's a new leek. So they are baby leeks, you know, which I've got my vegetables for this class. Most of the vegetables come from a small garden in Gloucestershire in England. This good small farm, this is called, and then it's a small grower, a couple of people growing vegetable on a very low scale, and their vegetables are quite extraordinary, very fresh, very alive. So this is the first leek of the new season of leek, a baby leek. They call it baby leek. Yeah, and then I have celery, and I have carrots, garlic. We have the tomatoes also. I use some tomatoes from this garden, Rosie's garden, or good also, as they are called themselves. Then we have plenty of fresh herbs. It's the same. All the herbs I am using here. You see, so I have rosemary, I have sage, I have thyme, fresh thyme, I have oregano. All this come from this small garden, and they cultivate with a lot of care, and it's a very small scale. And the parsley also, I will use parsley. It's a very nice parsley. So it's a kind of, you know, everything is kind of local and grown in a very simplistic way. And then of course I have chosen we have here a bowl of borlotti beans soaking. They are pinto beans, really. Because now, if we had a garden, you know, in a couple of weeks, the pudding beans are ready. You get fresh beans and you can pot them and cook them before you start to dry them and store them for the winter. But so those one, of course, are dried beans. I just soaked them. They are just soaked, and I'm going to demonstrate how to cook beans, you know, how to cook them. So they have been soaking for a couple of hours. They don't need too long to soak. And then we are going to start by cooking the beans, because it takes quite a long time to cook beans, unless you have a pressure cooker, you know. So for the needs of the demonstration of the class, I have everything double ready. I demonstrate the cooking, but everything for me is already ready. So I have cooked my beans in advance, but I'm going to demonstrate how to cook them. But here I have my cooked beans. I have a large quantity of food. Today I'm going to cook a big soup or a big stew, because I am very honored to be the host of a beautiful house, and the family who hosts me, I think for my thanks, I'm just cooking the meal for the family as part of the cooking class. So that's why you may see, oh, Jean is using a lot of vegetables. He's doing a big soup. It's because this is a family of 4 plus 2 other people, so there are quite a few people to cook for today. So here are these beans. Here, when I take them in my hand, dry beans. So first we have to drain the water off. which my assistant is going to do. And if you soak them, you discard the soaking water. And then you replace the soaking water with fresh water. And then we place all this into a saucepan. And then we bring them to a boil. So I'm going now to go to the fire, and then we are going to start this, and then we shall see how to do this. So here I put my beans here, and I cover them with water, and then I bring that to a boil. So once this pot is boiling, because I want to really show you how to cook beans properly from the dry state, from zero, from scratch. It's very important. We soak them 2 to 6 hours, because it's very important to soak beans thoroughly, so they are very well cooked. Of course, you can buy them already cooked, but then I recommend to buy bottled pulses, bottled beans, not in cans, because cans is a strange flavor, and then often it's with additives. Whilst in glass, normally it should be water and beans, whatever beans it is, cannellini beans, red kidney beans, whatever. So I have to put enough water to cover the beans, about 2 centimeters above the beans. And then I bring it to a boil. And once I bring this to a boil, I return to my chopping board, and we are going to start vegetables, to cut them, how to cut them, and then we will return to our bean and continue the process of cooking them.
We have 2 questions, if this is a good
Yes.
moment. One is, why do you choose not to pressure cook these beans? And the other question is, which zucchini there's the light skinned and the darker green. How did you choose? And the yellow?
Yes, of course. So the beans I changed my camera, excuse me. I have to always to switch camera. I come to answer. So the beans I'm going to use now, you see this, I have the beans here. This, I pressure cook them. They are pressure cooked. But if I do an online class, I can't assume that everyone in the world has a pressure cooker. You see? But if you have a pressure cooker, I recommend to pressure cook them. However, pressure cooking or not pressure cooking, to start with, it's the same. I will come back later in a moment. I will come back to my beans later, because the first process of cooking beans, it's irrelevant whether you pressure cook them or you don't pressure cook them. Some beans, which are very difficult to cook, like chickpeas, it's easier to pressure cook them because they take a long time to cook. Where those beans were pudding beans, the new beans of the autumn in September, October, when the beans, you can pick them up from the bean stem, you don't really need to pressure cook them. They cook very fast. Those beans here that I have in the class are dried beans, and because they are borlotti beans, they'll take about 1 hour to cook. Mm-hmm. Without a pressure cooker. In the pressure cooker, those I cook them 15 minutes after having soaking. So I soak them 2 hours and pressure cook them 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. But I have a state-of-the-art pressure cooker here, some incredible machine. So of course but not everyone has this.
And in the summer, do you pressure cook?
So excuse me?
In the hot summer months, do you also pressure cook?
Yes, I don't worry about this, because summer or winter or something, if it's beans. Because I want to cook them through properly, that they are digestible. That's more where I come from. Of course, I can discuss why pressure cooking in the winter or in the summer, but I want them cooked properly. You know, so if I have to cook like beans, like kidney beans or chickpeas, for example, which you could perfectly do a stew with, they are difficult to digest if they are not cooked through, like they become, like these beans. Wait, I show you something. I think it's very important, the digestibility of food. It's more important even than the idea of so it's not boiling then yet. But here my beans, you see, here I have it in my hand, you see, I can squeeze them in my hands. They are very cooked. And I pre-cook them. I always pre-cook the beans before I start to proceed to any recipe, because I know they are cooked through. So and after the flavor are going to develop and so on. But of course, you know, here, these beans behind me, they are not pressure cooking, but they will take 1 hour or 1 hour, I think 60 minutes easily, you know. So sometimes time is more precious sometimes than ideas. So, okay, I pressure cook.
Do you ever sprout the beans before cooking?
That's all the new thing. That's absolutely right, Dina. I think it's very good to do this. Now, it's good, yes, to sprout if you know what you are doing. Because of course, if you don't know what you are doing, you just do bubbling, fermenting food. But if you do sprout the beans, what you do is, of course, you sprout them just a millimeter, just a little bit. You like 24 hours. And so there is a digesting process which starts within the bean because of the enzyme of the sprouting. So the beans are more digestible. But of course, you lose, because you will cook them, you lose the energy of the sprout itself, because then you will cook them, but actually they become very digestible. So even lentils, I do that with lentils. I do that at home. I do that, you know. But you know, as a cook, kind of professional cook, you know, I don't do that all the time. If I cook, you know, for 50 people or something, because it's a little bit more tricky. But at home, I do actually. It's a perfect idea. That because they are already digested for you somehow through the process. Now, I come back to this zucchini. I have a yellow zucchini. I have here a normal zucchini, and I have the other zucchini here. I already cut it, but you can see it's pale green. They are called striped zucchini, stripy zucchini. You know. So because it's squash, I call it this squash. For me, a zucchini is a squash. That means it's a summer pumpkin. It's not something. It doesn't keep. You can't put it in your larder for the winter. You have to use it now, and they grow fast. It's crazy in the garden. They grow and grow and grow. So you just go pick them up in the morning and cook them. And my stew is a summer stew. It's a late summer stew. I call it late summer stew. I don't call it stew, you know, it's a light food. So I go with what I have now. Now, zucchinis are plentiful, at least in Great Britain. It's British things. They are grown here. You know, where I live in Switzerland, there's lots of them. And then in 3 weeks, it will be finished. So that's why I use them now. Now, look, I go back to now is a good time to demonstrate the bean cooking, you know, because they are doing exactly what I want them to do. You see? You see, they are foaming. Look at all this muck on here. You see? It doesn't matter, well, we have the steam of the camera, but I have to remove the foam. And that's very, very important. Whether I do pressure cooking, whether I boil them, I will do the same. I don't put them in the pressure cooker without removing this. So here I boil them, but I do remove this foam, which makes the beans a little bit difficult to digest. Now, if you have a very high flame, the foam goes back in because it's too hot. But then and depending, if the beans are very fresh, you don't have much foam. If the beans are very old, you have a lot of foam. So you have always to remove this foam before you proceed. I always do this. So that makes my beans much more far easy to digest. You know, to be assimilated by the body. And then you don't have flatulence, obviously. So I do this. You find the lid from behind the cover behind you. Yeah. And then, whether it's pressure cooking or not pressure cooking, I have here, you see, a piece of seaweed. This is a piece of kombu or kelp, if you want, kelp. And why do I put this in the bean? Because basically beans, this seaweed, have bicarbonate of sodium inside it, natural bicarbonate of sodium. And when you use a little bit of it, you don't need so much. You know, you need 2 centimeters. And then you put it in the bean, plum. Once you have removed the foam and the bicarbonate of sodium in the seaweed breaks somehow the hard shell of the bean and helps them to soften and to cook. Even in the pressure cooker. So now I've done that. So if it were a pressure cooker, I close it and I cook 15 minutes for this. These beans, some beans take 40 minutes in the pressure cooker. Then I make a low flame. I lower my flame. I cover my pot, a jar like that. And I'm going to leave them cook and cook until they are soft. In this pot, they will take, I think, about 60 minutes. We shall see. Then I can go back to my vegetables and then start to cut the vegetables. I demonstrate this, and then, of course, I've cut everything in advance for the sake of the program that I am presenting. So
What is the purpose of leaving the lid ajar?
Because this part, you see, unless you will have a huge pot, you know, very tall, which is unlikely that you have in your house, they spout out. You know, if you put the lid on, the lid they just come out. It will pour out of the pot. So that way, enough steam escape, and then you don't mess up your cooker. That's a very practical reason. So now I cut all the vegetables that I have here. You see, I have a carrot here. I have the zucchini. Everything I want is to cut it into small dice. So I'm going to demonstrate that, and then I have cut everything ready by for myself. So but I want to show you, you see. So what kind of shape, how do we do this? It's quite simple. And let's say I start with a carrot. So a carrot is long. How do I transform this carrot into little dice, you know? So I cut them in slices, in long slices, you see, like that. For example, you know, so I have the whole part of the carrots here. You see, you can see, yeah, all my carrots is here, like that, entirely. And then I go along the slice and I cut it in nice pieces of like sticks, like that. Yeah, it's quite big, you know, 8 milliliters, something. And these sticks, then I cut them across, you see, like that, in little cubes. And I end up with a nice ball of cubes. You see, that's my assistant. Eh? You can see he's very well trained, very perfect job. You see, he's a very trained assistant. He knows, he have cut many carrots, you know, with us, so he knows now how to cut them very nicely. So that's for a long vegetable. It's just a method of cutting a long vegetable like that. And you can go through the whole carrot and cut it that way. The same it will be with a long zucchini or with a fat zucchini. You know, let's say it's a fat zucchini. So I go again, you know, it's a big slice. Or here I could change it, you know, I could change because it's a baby zucchini. I could change it and I could, it's good enough like that because it's a baby one. So I cut it in two and then cut it in cubes. And the same with my zucchini here. And then I cut it in little cubes, little dice. So I have all here my beautiful striped zucchini. In England, they call them safari zucchini because they are striped like zebras, or they are called zebra zucchinis. You know, they are ridged. You see, white and green. But I think it's just fancy name, you know, obviously. It's colloquial language. It's nice, it's just nice, funny. But it doesn't matter which one I use. What I want is the lightness of them. You know, I don't want to use an Hokkaido pumpkin in this soup. It will not be right because it's a late summer stew. So I want squash. I don't want, you know, a big pumpkin. That will not work. Then I have the celery. You see, I use celery because celery gives a very good flavor. And celery, in a way, celery, it's a kind of more a medicinal vegetable. It's not a vegetable you really, it's a vegetable you mix things with. You don't really use it as a vegetable in itself, but it's very good when you cook soups with it. So you cut it in sticks and the sticks in little cubes. And then you have them, plenty of them here, prepared lovingly by Matt, you know. Then maybe I have it. So long vegetables are easy to cut like that, you see. It's a little bit more tricky when you are having something round like an onions, you know. So I peel the onion and then it's a little bit more difficult to obtain cubes, but there is a very simple, it's a very fat onion. That I've chosen a very fat onion by purpose. Look, these big onions, yeah, like that. So I cut it in half. I have half an onion, like that. And here we have the root part of the onion. And I cut towards the root. And then I cut the onions in pieces like that. And I don't cut the root, you know, the root part. So it's all like that, like a fan. And I can cut across to make it smaller. And then I take my onions and then I'm going to cross across like that in the middle of it until the root. Of course, I have a sharp knife. Just you have to have your knife. It's a very important tool. You must choose your knife carefully. And then I cut across. And you know, my knife doesn't hack things. My knife slides along the vegetable. And then I have little cubes of onions.
Also notice how Jean curls his fingers on the hand that's holding the onion or the carrot or whatever. How you curl your fingers in so the knife goes along the knuckles.
Oh, yeah. You know, my knife, I hold it, my knife, yeah, just with really between my thumb and my second finger. I really don't grab it like it's very light. My knife is sharp. I have a very sharp knife. I take care of my knife. Then I'm using the board. So I have my hand here, all the vegetables. Here I have a strong grip. Yeah. I have a strong grip. It's because the vegetables need to be firm on the board, on the chopping board. And then the knife, because it's sharp, just slide along. So I go up because it's fat. So if not, I could do it that way. But the onions is very big. So I don't force it. And of course, here you could use the balance of the knife also, you know, like that. And yesterday, I was doing a cooking class, and then a student asked me a very important question. He said, do you recut your onions if you did it wrong? You know, do you chop them like that? You know, hug them? And I said, no, you don't. Because if you start to hug them like that, because you want to, you have to know how to cut them, because if you hug them and chop them with your knife like that, first, it's not really graceful. You know, there's no grace in that gesture. You know, and second thing, technically, you make your onions bitter, especially shallots and so on. They become bitter. They become very oniony, bitter. So you have to have a sharp knife, a beautiful board. So you have to bring care to every moment you are doing something. You see? Then you go from putting food together to a form of heart. You bring your heart and you have art like a painting. So you do both things in the same time. You know, that's what we teach in the Concord School of Culinary Art. That's really what I want to teach. We don't throw things together in a pot and make it happen. We bring a certain level of attention, care, and of course that demands a training. It's a kind of of course it's a training, you know. Obviously, if I started when I was 26 and I have to say I'm 73, it took me a long time. But I'm very grateful to all the people I've learned and taught me all these things. So you know.
We have two questions. How
Yes.
often do you sharpen your knife? And the celery, is it Chinese celery?
Chinese celery?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. That was my
I don't know
guess.
what is Chinese celery. This
I guess
celery are just celery, white celery. You know, they are of course grown natural. You know, everything is organic. There is nothing which is not organic in this kitchen, in this meal, but it's just celery. You know, what I know about celery is a bitter plant. It's bitter. Real celery is very green and it's bitter. And in the old days, before, celery was not part of the vegetable patch. It was part of the medicinal patch in the garden, because it's a medicinal herb and it's extremely bitter, and then you can use it for various purposes. But of course, in cooking, we have this white celery. They just give a nice flavor. Yeah. So that's things. Now, how often I sharpen my knife? Not very often, because it's my knife. Nobody can touch it normally. Or today I lend it to my assistant, but I don't allow people to touch my knife. All my assistants, all my co-workers, they know that. You don't touch Jean's knife. So that means I know how, because the knife and my hand are together one. So I don't need to sharpen it that often, because my hand knows how to use it. So I am one with my knife, something like that. But if not, you have to sharpen it, let's say, every week or sometime every 2 days. And once you know how to cut it, you don't need to sharpen your knife, really. You know, if you have a good knife, of course. It's not, they are good. These things is a good tool. It's a proper tool. So if your knife is good, you don't need to sharpen that often. If it's not good, you have to sharpen it very often.
Have you used a ceramic knife?
A ceramic knife, I think they are very good also. You know, they are good. They are good. It's a kind of modern thing. It's good. It's good for household. You know, I think it's good for professionally. Maybe it's a little bit different, but I think they are very good. Yes, they work very well. You don't need to sharpen them that often. You know, they clean very well.
And what kind of knife is yours?
This is a Swiss knife. This is we in Switzerland. There is a company called Kuhn Rikon, and they do marvelous tools. You know, pressure cookers, pots, pan, because they master the art of steel. You know, this is steel. This is carbon steel knife, and so they all the things they work with is steel, and so it's a high quality steel. It's not steel from yeah, I don't know. I don't say where cheap steel come from, but it's yeah. So it's a good quality steel. It's from. And so the metal used is very clean. It's not polluted, and it's a craft product. You know, it's not so it's a good knife from Kuhn Rikon. But there are many kinds. Each cook will have a different way of looking at knives. So I need to speed up a little bit now. So I go now we are going to put everything together, you know. So I have cut all my vegetables. Look, I have my display of vegetables. They are here. All my vegetables are ready here, and the carrots. So we are going to start to cook and to assemble the dish, and I'll continue while I'm doing this. Then I have plenty of time to ask to answer a question. So here and the beans, you see, everything is cut and ready for me. So we are going to go through the method of cooking. So now you need to give me the good pan. Yes, this pan, that will be perfect. And then we go back to our cooker. It will be here. So I leave. And then here I have a pot, a big pot. Yes. So you tell me if it's then I flame, I heat the pot a little bit. And then I'm going to use olive oil in that pot. I have the pot warm first. I wait. My pot is getting hot. I always pause when I do something. It's very important. I don't rush through things like too fast, you know. I have to go through. Then, okay, I think it's hot enough, and I use olive oil, a good olive oil. For this, I use olive oil because it's I use olive oil because it's porotee beans, it's local vegetables, so olive oil works, you know. And then it's not very hot. It's not going to be burning hot. I'm just going to heat the oil a little bit, and then we are going to saute the vegetables. Now, which one is the first vegetables to use? I'm going to add the vegetables, the zucchini, the carrots, the leeks. I'm going to add first the more watery vegetables. You know, the vegetables which have more water in it. So, and which are less likely to burn. Leeks and onions are watery. If you start with leeks are too thin. They are very fragile, so they burn. So you must first to put onions because they are more sturdy, so they don't burn. So I put a little onions. I have to do a big sweep, you know, for all these people. And now in this, the flame is very high. You know? And then I saute my vegetables, coat them very well with oil, and leave them, saute them for a few minutes. And while I continue to explain the process of the dish. So we have first wet vegetables, onions, leeks. Here and then it doesn't matter, you just can put them almost together. Put a little more onions. And the celery. All these vegetables are. And then I add salt now. Because the salt is going to go in the vegetable and make them sweat. So the vegetables are going to give their water. It's about a teaspoon for this big pot. Some salt. I don't measure it too much, I put some salt. Because the salt is to make the vegetables sweet and to make the vegetables sweat and sweet. They become sweeter and then they sweat. Then that means the water comes out of the vegetables. And you know, my pot here is a little bit wet. You know, my vegetables start to become translucent. And I keep always a high flame. I'm not afraid of the fire here for the moment. And then once, before in the preparation, you see I've shown you that I had the herbs. I had all the fresh herbs, which were ready. You know, the fresh herb I had here before, the thyme, the oregano, the rosemary. But I've chopped them very small, and I add them now. You will see we are going to use the herbs differently. Now, in the beginning of the cooking, we chop the herbs and we saute them. You look, there is some string somewhere, and then you make a bundle. So I saute them, and you see, my vegetable now don't sizzle anymore because too much water comes out of them. And then I add the carrots now to the soup. Now, what I do with these vegetables, while I'm going to explain you the next stage of the dish, you see I have these vegetables and smaller, and then I'm going to leave them to cook without any water, any liquid. And for this reason, I take a lid, you know, here, I have a lid which go inside the pot, you see, inside the pot, covering the vegetables, inside it. Then I take my lid and I put it on the pot. So I have two lids, a lid on the pot on the top of the vegetables and a lid on the top of the pot. But now, and so what's going to happen is that the water of the vegetable come out, meet the lid inside, and fall back into the pot. But for this reason, now I must lower the flame. I lower the flame, and I'm just going to leave this for a few minutes to sweat and the vegetables to cook through without any liquid. So I keep every flavors of the vegetables concentrates. So I leave this here, and then whilst it's cooking, I'm going to explain you about why I prefer to use in my soup a vegetable stock versus water. Now we could continue the soup with water, but I'm going to use a vegetable stock, and then in the recipe booklet, you have everything explained how to make a vegetable stock, but I'm going to show it to you. Now, yeah, you do a blender with everything and with oregano. So here you have to go back. Here I go back to the other camera, and you will see I have a big pot of vegetable stock that we prepared. Here, a big pot. In this pot, so I'll show you what there is in this pot. Look, in this pot, there are plenty of vegetables. I have corn, I have parsley, the stems of the parsley. I have the offcut of the carrots. I have a couple of mushrooms. I have also a little bit of seaweed. Leeks, garlic, that's a combo. And I have added nice flavors to it. I have added cinnamon. I have added cloves. I have added black pepper kernels. And this, I cooked it for about 30 minutes, something like that, gently. And so all the sweetness of the vegetables and the minerals of the vegetables went into the soup, into this broth. We went into this broth, yeah? So we are going to take the vegetables out. And then we take the vegetables out from this, you see? Here. And the vegetables, we can't reuse them. All the goodness of the vegetable went out into this liquid. So I give them back to the earth, the vegetables. They return to the earth. You know, that means in the compost. Aside from the kombu I keep it because the kombu can be reused several times. So the kombu here, the seaweed, the piece of kombu, is precious, so I keep it. But all the vegetables, they lost their nutritive value. Everything is in the water, you know. So I can't really. But you know, I used only good vegetables. I didn't use rotten vegetables, old vegetables, you know, from vegetables I couldn't use. So all this return to the earth. I don't throw it away. It goes to the compost, and I have really an incredible broth here. You see? It's all the results of this mixing vegetables. That you have the recipe I gave the recipe because I think it's very important. Why? Because most of the food I cook is plant-based. A large part is plant-based. And so when we cook with plants, we need to have as much minerals as possible, as much of the goodness of the food as possible. And this is a very good method to obtain the nutrition, the sugars and the minerals from the vegetables. Very important point. I didn't put any salt in this. There is no salt because salt would have prevented the minerals of the vegetables to go out of the vegetables, and the salt would have gone inside the vegetables instead of the minerals coming out of the vegetables, because salt will have stopped it, you know, because the vegetable, the salt go where the water go where it's the most concentrated. And the minerals, if they are in water, they just come out. The more concentrated goes towards the less concentrated. So here is my vegetable stock. And so you can, this keeps a long time, it keeps a week. You don't need to add salt. And it keeps several days in the refrigerator, of course, so you can make in advance. If not, you can obviously freeze it. I'm not too much about freezing food, but it's useful.
Is there a reason you chose red onion as opposed to white?
Yes, it's because the lady in the garden, they gave me a mixture of vegetables. I had put a little bit of white vegetables and white onions, pardon. But when I get vegetables now here, if not when I get onions, pardon, excuse me, then they are red or brown. Of course, sometimes I choose. If I want to do long cooking or sautéed with greens, I'd prefer to have red onions. But now I just got a few red onions and a few white onions because I just ordered onions to this garden and just bring onions. So I have them like that. But of course, you are right. If I prefer to have red onions, like say if I do long cooking, if I caramelize onions or so, it's better to have red onions. They are sweeter and they are richer in terms of cooking, not I don't look at other terms in terms of cooking and what it brings. But in general, I will use, like now she said, oh, she already has the onions were ready, when I get the onions now, the brown onions, they were ready a few weeks ago, and they dried them, and so now they are for sale, but they are still very young and fresh. So and they come either brown or red. So now I think I go back to have a look at my soup pot. I mustn't forget. Whatever I do, even if I speak, I mustn't forget my soup pot. Behind me, stewing gently. Wait, I go that. Yeah. It's very hot, obviously. Now, my vegetables here are all wet. You see, they're all wet. And they are wet and they are kind of partly cooked. They are kind of soft. They are still the carrots. I lose the carrots. The onions, the leeks, the celery, they are cooked. So with the herbs. And I use maybe, like a very flat teaspoon of salt for all of this. But the drop lid makes a whole difference. This lid, this lid makes a whole difference. So now, my vegetable, I think they are soft enough, you see in the pot. So I'm going to add the beans to it, into the pot.
These are the cooked beans, of course.
The cooked beans, yes. The beans which are pre-cooked, yes. This was the one which are pressure cooked. The other one are still cooking, on the side. Because of course they will not be, for the purpose of the class, they will not have been ready, So I have my beans here, and now I'm going to cover them. I'm going to add the vegetable stock to it. And I'm going to, and I have cooking water from the beans, so I'm going to use this also. So I'm covering that with here. And I now I return to a high flame to cook faster. And bean cooking water. I'll cover my beans and vegetables with liquid. And now I'm going to add the zucchini to it. Why did I not add the zucchini earlier? You know, when I sauteed vegetables, because the zucchini are very fragile and soft, and they take a very short amount of time to cook because they are squash. That's the reason why I use squash. And so I'm going to put them now. And the time we need to cook the soup 15 minutes, they will cook through and stay more or less crispy, more or less. So I add now the zucchini sweet like that, because we don't want to overcook them. And then, for the moment, I'm not adding any salt. I will adjust the seasoning once the cooking went through. So I'm going to, what I do here now is to bring it to a simmer. I bring this to a simmer, so I cover it. And I'm going to continue to cook it and then explain you the next stage of that dish. Whilst it's cooking, we are going to, so once it's boiling, we are going to lower the flame and let it simmer for something like 20 minutes or something like that. I don't cook it too long. And you see, I don't pressure cook it, nothing. I don't bake it because it's a summertime. So I just boil it gently. And I use vegetables which are cooking fast. And that's why the vegetables are all cut in small pieces, not in large chunks. Because I don't want to cook this for 2 hours. It should be done in more or less 30 minutes. You know, if you do it from beginning to end, it kind of takes 30 minutes, according that the beans have been pre-cooked 15 minutes. Or they come out of a jar. If your beans come out of a jar, you kind of test them first because sometimes they are too hard or something. If they are too salty, because sometimes it's with salt, you rinse them. If not, you just warm them up in a little saucepan and continue to cook it. So while we are waiting, I want to show you that something that my assistant prepared. So my assistant Matt took rosemary, oregano, the string, rosemary, oregano, and sage, and a little bit of thyme. And then it started to make a bundle, a little bundle, you see. I continue to show you this. I make now with the same herbs that I used earlier, the same herbs that I used when I sauteed the vegetables. I chop them very fine and I saute them. Then I use, if you will, the good, the goodness of the herbs are going to go into my soup. But now I make the bundle with the fresh herbs.
Is there basil in there also?
Hmm?
Is there also basil?
Yes, I see that he put a bit
Mhm.
of basil because there was that on the table on the plate. I asked him to make a bundle. So I have just a bundle of herbs. And now I'm going to, when the soup is almost ready, I will just dip it in the soup. And so this time, the flavors of the herbs will go in the soup, in the flavor. It will be very sweet. All the sweetness, all the rich flavor of the herbs will just diffuse into the soup, into the stew. Someone asked me, why do you use so many herbs? Because I've been cooking for days with people. Oh, you use so many herbs. But you know, now herbs are abundant everywhere in the garden, the herb gardens. If you have an herb garden or a balcony herb garden, they just grow and grow. You have everything. Rosemary, oregano, marjoram, thyme, sage, all sorts of herbs, which are the medicinal plants of the West, of our latitudes. You know, I'm not in this soup, I will not use necessarily ginger or you know, you know, maybe lemongrass, because it will be different type of cooking. But here now in England, in Switzerland, in Germany, in France, everywhere in this on this latitude, we have plenty of fresh herbs, plenty. So it's the time. Of course, we have to dry them for winter, but we have also to make use of them. They make a big difference, not only to the flavor, but all the different elements, nutrients that there are in herbs become accessible now. So we have to make use of them, you know, because very soon in November, it will be difficult to get thyme. You will have to buy thyme and it will be flown from Argentina or something. I will never do that. I don't buy them, you know. So here now, that's the time to use herbs. It's exactly like the zucchini. You know, it's a season. So I have my little bundle, I keep them. Then I have another.
Could you also use a small cooking bag to put
Of
them
herbs. Yes, wait, I'll show you something. Show my eggs. So in my little basket, I show you, I have, it's over there, my basket, and you know, my little straw basket. And inside there is my just straw basket. No. Wait, just I want to show you something in. Sorry, I misplaced it. But what your question is important. You see, of course, I could use a little bag. I put them in a little bag, you know, the herbs. Or what I do, I put them in a tea egg, you know, one of these things, a little mesh wire, little contraption that you use for making tea. And that's generally I use that in my pots. And so but this system is very good also. You know, it works. It works perfectly. It's very simple. This system here that I have. So you know, I think that's a very easy system. But you can use a little muslin bag, and you can make it in a little muslin bag that works. You know, that because if you that way, of course, yeah. Here we are. So here we have it. I have it here. You see, that's what I meant. You know, this little thing. It's very handy.
If you want to chop your herbs, Do you have a method for how to chop the herbs?
A method for
For
chopping. Oh yes, I
the
can chop.
herbs.
That's important. Yes, that's true. Yes, look, that's true. Because that's a very important question, you see. Because if you do anyhow, you ruin the herbs. You know, you ruin them. Yeah. That's, I have a couple of minutes while, because the soup is not yet cooking, so it's perfect question. First, so let's say I come back now to my camera. It's yeah, I'm always sometimes have to lift my arm up with my assistants because they don't understand this important, very, very important handling of herbs. So you have an herb here, and you have the sage here, you see. And then I tear them off the stem, very important, yeah, like that, the herbs. You see, they're on my board. And then I pluck the sage. Here. And let's give me, and it is very, very true for basil. I will see for basil. In a minute, I will do first these herbs and then the basil. That's very important question. So now I mix them, yeah? So I make a little bundle here. Now I don't do this. You see, I think this is crazy because the herbs become black and they oxidize very fast because of the rough chopping, hacking them. So no, I hold my knife here like that. And I put my hand on top of the knife. And I'm using like a jigsaw, you say? Like you have, you balance it.
Seesaw.
A seesaw, like that. You see? Later we will cut, I'm going to cut parsley in a minute. So you see, I don't do this. This is, I think, far too rough for the herbs. That damage them. I actually cut them. And I use them within the hour, within the half hour. That's a last minute thing you cut. You can't cut them. Literally they stay, you know, now I've for the class, I've put them, everything is on a plate. But really what I do is to keep them in water. You know, all the herbs are kept in water like plants, like flowers. Or if you don't do this, you wrap them in paper. And each individual, each herb different, separate. The rosemary, the thyme, every herb, you wrap them very nicely. You tuck them like in a blanket. And then you put this in a box, closed, and they keep very long time. So you see, it's a gentle. Now, if it's basil, I plug the leaves, you know, because basil is so fragile. And then the basil, I put the leaves on top of each other like that, a little amount, and then I cut it very gently. It's very tender. For herbs, you see. And now I have my basil, you know, threads, which are very small, and that's important. You see? So, and then the herbs now have to be used. You know, they have to be used because they oxidize so fast. And so if you use them tomorrow morning, they will be gone. It's finished. It's dead food. So herbs, you use them when you need them. So you keep them in your water. And then, so we have to look at the soup because I can see the soup, it's smoking, you know, so I want to come back to the soup and then we are going to chop parsley and made a little very important addition to our dish to balance it because it's quite a warm dish. And outside here, it's like the tropics, you know, London tropical climate. So I go back now to my soup. And the pot is smoking, you see, because the soup now is, while I was speaking, now the soup is very bubbly. And I don't want, it's too strong a fire. So now I lower it, because I don't want this strong fire in the summertime. But I'm going to lower the flame. Here. And I gently, and now I'm going to lift the lid and cook it off without the lid. And you see my zucchinis are still green, bright green or yellow, and they don't melt. So I continue to cook it without a lid. I add the herbs bundle to it. And then I'll add the herb bundle to it and then steep it in like that. For a few minutes, and the flavor are going to diffuse into the soup. And now I'm going to adjust the seasoning now, because if you adjust the seasoning too early, it might become too salty, you see, because now what we have done by cooking gently with just a little amount of salt is that everything comes into the water, into the stew. If you put too much salt in the beginning, what happens is water evaporates and the thing becomes saltier and saltier and saltier. And it's impossible to correct. Well, it's not impossible, but it's difficult to correct. If it's not salty enough, which I think it is, I think it needs more seasoning. By seasoning, I mean salt, sea salt, natural sea salt only. Then we can adjust it bit by bit. So we are going to see what we need to add to this. Because now that it's cooked, we can judge. Now, there is a way of testing foods. You know, you must first put it in a bowl. If you don't put the food, you must first put it in a bowl, you know, and wait half a minute, you know, because the heat comes out, you know, because you can't test it if it's very hot. You can't understand food when it's too hot. You burn yourself. So I test. So my stew is almost there. You see, you know, in this big pot, I added like a flat teaspoon of salt, not too much. But I cooked it in a certain way, so the natural flavors of the vegetables are going into my soup. And it needs a very small adjustment, very small. So really, I didn't use too much salt. You know, it's not. I'm not going to use miso because it's not the winter. I'm not going to do this unless I will be ill. If I was ill, maybe I will put a good miso, but I'm not. So I am going to add salt, but there is one possibility in a stew like that is to add a very, very, very small amount of tamarind, not soya sauce, tamarind, but a small amount, very like half a spoon only. And this is not for the salt. Tamarind is salty, but it's because it gives a little bit character. So it's very small amount. You know, look, very small. So you don't have to do that. because not everyone has tamari. Well, tamari I may have it in my larder, but if not, I just add salt. Boom. Now, when I add this, I have to cook it. I never do that on the table. The salt needs to cook. You see? So my soup is, I could say it's almost ready, you know, it's quasi ready. Now I'm going to add something to this soup because I want to offset the richness of it because it's very hot outside and I don't want to have something, you know, of course, I would say it's a soup for September, you know. But now this particular September, this week, for a week in London, we are going to have 25 degrees, 26 degrees Celsius, 27 degrees Celsius, which is very warm, hot. It's warm. So, you know, but let's say that's a soup I could eat in a kind of chilly evening of September. But I'm going to do something to that soup to balance it a little bit towards the summer. I'm going to bring an element which is going to make it, to bring the lightness I need. First, while it's cooking like that, we chop very briefly some parsley or some chives for garnish. So here I have parsley and chives. Here. Again, that I cook, you see here, I do it, it's my knife cutting. The knife is cutting, it's not me cutting. I don't even, you know, I can speak and cut. And I don't really, it's a very soft, my hand is very gentle. So I want to bring greenery to my thing. So I have fresh chive, again from this good small farm, gardens, Rosie's Gardens, you know, she gave me a nice little bundle of everything. And look, it's very small. Very tiny. And then to this, we will clean all of this in a bowl. And to this, I take a lemon. Of course, it's organic lemon, obviously. I will never touch non-organic lemon. I will not even go close to it. It's 100% organic lemon. And then I'm going to grind it. You know, I have a little contraption here. I want to add lightness to my soup, and the essence of the lemon will help to summarize, to make it summertime. You see? So here is my little preparations. While I will go there, you will just make the things neat. And then I'm going to, you see, besides this, I have here a yellow tomato, a red tomato, and a green tomato. And there are brown ones and so on. So all these tomatoes are, again, they are not, I never buy, I will not even enter a supermarket to buy tomatoes. I don't do this. I can't do this. It's impossible. It's against my own being, you know. So they come, and so this one, they are grown by these farms. Today, I just bought them especially like that. Of course, it's not so easy to come by real tomatoes, which are grown. For me, tomatoes must have encountered the sun. Of course, I'm talking to people who are in Israel, partly, so it seems logic, maybe in Israel. It's kind of evident, maybe. But here in England, it's not, you know. Everything is in greenhouses with artificial heat, and then the tomatoes grow on water. It's hydroponic culture. So I don't do this. They are grown by these little farmers, and they are in the earth. And then some of them, also the green one, come from Kent, because last week in Concord Institute we had a marvelous seminar called Jumpstart in Kent. And in Kent, this venue where we were hosted, they have a gigantic walled garden where they grow their own vegetables. And their vegetables are just amazing, you know. And so I have still this vegetable from them. That's why the tomatoes are kind of soft. They are kind of ripe, you know. So what I did is I removed the peel, and in the recipe sheet I describe in a little corner the method of how to peel tomatoes and remove the seeds of them for this purpose, because I want to remove the extra acidity of the tomato. Tomato is a fruit, so basically it's a fruit really, botanically. So I have a few of this yellow and which have been peeled, and I just chop them roughly. And I'm using them now because really it's finished, at least here on these latitudes. Where I live in Switzerland, it's finished. You know, the Demeter quality, the best quality ever of vegetables. It's the end of the season. It's now. Normally, the end of the season, yeah, it's 20th of September, but this year is very early. So after the end of the season, I won't buy tomatoes. I could bottle them if I want for making warming dish in the winter and transforming them. But now I'm going to use them in a particular way in that soup. And so that will, you know, because my pot has been cooking that now, it's quite warm outside. It has been cooking quite, you know, the time we did the class, at least 45 minutes, something like that. It's quite long for summer cooking. So now we go back to our soup. And here I switch off the flame. I turn off, up, finished. I consider it's cooked. Yeah, I'm going to test it again. I remove the herbs. So I'm going to go back to my pot now, you see, and I'm going to remove the herbs from the soup here. You see here, I said the pot is off. I let it rest. I remove the herbs here. And off the flame here, my soup is kind of ready. I'm going to just test it a second time for making sure that the seasoning is correct. So I do a little bit here. Also, I just need the liquid, you know. The vegetables are cooked. So I test it first. So for this soup, it's fine. It's not too salty. It doesn't get strong because it's a summer. Again, I repeat again, it's a summertime food. So now I bring my soup to the working surface of the flame. I'm going to work off the flame. Yeah. I'm no more on the fire anymore. You see? All this, you can see all my gestures are very important because I work very carefully. I try to bring as much attention. So what I am doing, so because it's a process of creation that I'm doing here, I'm not putting things together. You know, this is this is the core of the culinary, the Concord School of Culinary Art teaching. We create something with various elements, and for this we need to understand very important part of cooking. You know, like I explained, how we chop vegetables, how we cut them, when we add them, why we add them, how much salt we use, and all this. So we bring together this dish here, and now I'm going to add the tomatoes off flame, you see, off flame. So the tomatoes are going to cook, if you will, with the residual heat of the soup. I don't put too much, I have too many here. And this is going to make my dish, my soup, a little bit lighter in its energy. And then I add the garnish that I've prepared, the lemon, the lemony parsley. I do it now in the soup. And this is going to be diffused in the soup, like that. You see? And then I'm going now, this soup, let's say, you know, I will call the family to it, for example, now. I will wait, because it's very hot outside, so we just wait. This soup, I can serve it slightly, not piping hot, just a little bit warm. And then it's accompanied by a good slice of bread, which I'm going to show you 2 or 3, you know, to eat the soup. So the soup is on the side, resting. Yeah. And I have marvelous bread. This bread is sourdough bread. Sourdough. It's sourdough bread made with spelt flour. Yeah. So there is no yeast inside the bread. But you can use, but it's a good quality bread. So I think it's, you know, I think it's a 48 sourdough bread. You know, sourdough bread takes time to be prepared. Here you have frying pans. So I take my bread. Now, of course, I could toast the bread. I could toast the bread, but it will make it too dry. You know, it will make it very, very dry unless I toast it very, very lightly. So I'm going to kind of steam it a little bit. I'll show you how to do this. And then I'm going to, so wait. So I take a frying pan like that, you know, here. And then I'm going to put my bread here. And on the bread, I drizzle a little bit of oil. Yeah. Then I put some herbs on it, rosemary or something like that, or thyme and rosemary. They're inside the cupboard, there are large lids. And I'm going to put that on a flame for very few minutes whilst I finish the soup. And covered like that. And with the heat, because the bread is fresh and little moist, it's going to kind of loosen a little bit. The bread is not going to roast because I'm going to put a very low flame. We have a few minutes, it's 37 now. We still have a few minutes for this to be prepared. So I just kind of partly steam the bread. Even you could drop it a little water on the hot pan when it's hot. So the bread remain moist. Because if I would put it now in the oven, if I would put it in a toaster, then the bread becomes very hard and too dry. That's not the idea I have of summer food, let's say, you know. So I put this back on the flame. You see that. Yeah. And it's covered. I wait that the pan heats up, so there is bread, a little oil, I turn it around, and you can put plenty of herbs in it. And the herbs will impart the bread flavor without the bread becoming too dry, because of eventually there is some moisture. But you have to cover it, like that. And pay attention to it, you mustn't forget it. So whilst it's doing this, I go back to the soup. Now, here, I am going to serve it. So we have a choice. I'm going to serve the soup in a nice bowl or plate. Yeah, this. So here I have a plate, a little bowl, a nice bowl. They are nice bowls like that, or another model. Ah, here it is. So here, or here. Now, so I have still my bread behind me, you know, steaming. And the soup, I serve it, even if I don't eat now, maybe I eat it, let's say, at 5 o'clock or something. Yeah, now, at the end of the class, for example. 5, 5 o'clock our time, my time here. But then, because I want to let it rest, you know. If it was a blizzard outside, and we were in December, I would have done something completely opposite, with big chunks of vegetables, a lot of miso, and whatsoever, you know. But here, my stew is very light, so I serve it like that, and I have managed to keep some of the colors of the soup here, you know. I put a liquid. I add more of the fresh chives. You know. So let's say, you know, I have children, you know. Now, of course, they're all grown up. But when you have a family, many children, and you call them to eat, you have always to wait, you see, for children. They don't come straight away. So in this case, I will be very patient with them, because it's okay to eat the food a little bit colder and wait. It can stay. We don't eat it, the food's that hot. Now it's very simple. Or could serve it in large plates, in large soup plates. And I return to my bread first to make sure where I am, that it doesn't, because I don't want to toast it. Yeah. So it's slightly bubbly. Yeah, and I touch, so only the edge is a little bit, of course, the crust is slightly brown, but that's it. I'm going to stop that. It's hot enough. What I did by that is to have the wetness of the bread inside the bread, the steam come a little bit out, and so the slice of bread now is nice and moist. Now I don't serve bread by just for no reason, I go back to my soup because I want to explain why do I not serve bread here? I have a reason why I served. I add bread to the soup. So here, I serve it like that. You see, I can bring it to a guest like that. Because you see, in this soup, I have vegetables, but I have beans, I have borlotti beans, or it could have been white beans or something. So with these things, I think it's good to have some form of grain, some form of carbohydrate, let's say, or grain, a little bit. Not, but if again in a very cold weather, I would prefer to maybe I cook rice, maybe I cook millet, to serve on the side. But now, because the weather yesterday, it just happened Saturday, Saturday morning, all of a sudden in London, the weather started to change from being like, I don't know, 15 degrees Celsius to 26, 27 degrees Celsius. Just boop, changed. So I think a slice of slightly toasted, very, very lightly toasted or warm bread will do very well with this light soup, with a lemon and the tomatoes, which are now cooked, not by sauteing and reducing, but just by being added to the soup, bringing the lightness. There is almost no salt in that soup, just enough for withdrawing the minerals and the sweetness from every part of it, the beans, the zucchini, the carrots, the onions, everything now is diffused. And we can sit down, later the family of this house will come back. I think they will be very happy to find a nice dish like that, so and so that's, you can see now, I can kind of wrap up, because the meal is ready. It's ready to be eaten or to be on the side. Maybe I can pass it on to my assistant. You see, I have prepared a soup, what I called late summer borlotti and vegetable soup, or bean and vegetable soup, or pinto beans, borlotti beans, cannellini beans. It's a large beans, not very small, something like a kidney beans, large, which is sweeter. Then I showed you how to cook them properly, so when you eat them, they become very digestible. You remove the foam from the beans, you pre-cook them. Before to add them to anything, you pre-cook them. You make them nice and rich. Then you add the various elements. And I think you have heard me. My goal is to bring attention to my gesture of cooking, what I'm doing. So in the Concord School of Culinary Art in London, where you are all invited to come from all over the world, that's really an open place where you can find, you can find all sorts of cooking program and much more than cooking in the Concord School of Culinary Art in London, where I am one of the teachers. And then what I share is, because I'm always in a question, what is really whole food cooking? What is it? Everything. For this class, I went a little mile more. I walked a little mile more by making sure that I have someone delivering me the vegetables from Gloucestershire, from a small garden, quite a long way, 3 hours drive from London. I could have gone just to a supermarket. Never I would do this. You see, I don't want to do this. Or I go to a farm in London, of course, there is farmers market. Or not here where I'm staying in this house, there is a beautiful farm shop where they have vegetables which are grown on their farm, and they are only seasonal, mostly. Of course, you know, the borlotti beans are not British, but more or less I try to find food. Even the tomatoes, when I look at it, is it really a tomatoes? Is it authentic? Is these little zucchinis, are they really squash, or are they just things? So I'm looking for authenticity. I'm looking for the aesthetic of the vegetables, how it looks, how I cut it. And then I am overwhelmed by the abundance of which is given to us by the gardens, you know. All you can look. How many vegetables did I put in this soup? Carrots, zucchinis, celeries, rosemary, oregano, basil, parsley, chives, garlic, all sorts of vegetables, which are an example of the abundance of nature. Gina, I think I see many things coming on the chat.
Yes, if you want to change your camera so we see you.
Me to read it, you mean?
And no, I'll ask the questions for you, just that we could see you speaking.
Ah, yeah, sorry, excuse me. You have to tell me that. That's why I ask you, you have to remind me, because I keep forgetting this. You know, when I'm speaking, I keep, because we can only comment the computer from one little spot. Please forgive me for that.
So questions that we have, and then we can open it up. One is how to choose which herbs to use. And another is peppercorns. Are they spicy and hot, or how do you include those?
Oh, okay, so I'll go show you that. I show you this, see, yeah. So look if there are peppercorn here, it's a vegetable drawer. So yes, I have here chili pepper. Yeah, they are very hot. No, in this drawer, it's a fridge. Yeah. These are chili peppers. They are very, very hot, extremely hot. And of course, this is different from bell pepper, from paprika, from the pepper you just referred to. So these are hot, very hot, and it's a relevant question because they are now all in season. Now the tomatoes, you know, the so-called, you know, nightshades or family, the bell pepper are quite in season now. So yes, I will not put it in this stew. You see, I think they have such a character of their own that they will take over everything. If I would put it in this stew, then they will take over. You know, they will just dominate the flavors. So I will not use them. They have their place, but maybe I grill them because it's a summertime. And I think maybe one of the reasons I think I see so many of these plants being used is because often they accompany a lot of meat. You know, if you eat a lot of animal food, it kind of makes sense to have a lot of bell peppers, tons of tomatoes, and all this. But here, I will use it, maybe the bell pepper, you know, I will saute them and you grill them, maybe use them in a bean salad, like that. And I will do some kind of, you know, so-called Mediterranean type of dish. But I will grill them, I will do something to them to balance them a little bit. And I prefer to use the red one or the yellow one because they are more mature. You know, green pepper are still a little bit, they are not so easy to digest. So I use them, but they will not be vegetables that I will go first with. And then the chilies, I'll use them very rarely and occasionally, and I will never put in any food that I serve to other people. I'll give people the choice to use them or not, or I will use it almost medicinally because I think it's a special food. If you maybe if you are too tight or if you have headaches or something, you can use it in a certain way. And it doesn't make sense in England in winter, for example. It could make sense today because it's especially hot.
So
Yes,
the
hello.
tomatoes and some of the others, they're nightshades. So of course we've been taught to avoid them.
Yes, the whole thing's about, yeah, I have an issue about nightshade myself because nightshades are taken over the world. Wherever you go to Oslo, you go to Le Cape Town, you go to Pittsburgh, anywhere you go in the world, you will find tomatoes, paprika, bell peppers, and aubergines. It's ridiculous, you know? So bell peppers and aubergine, I kind of use them sometimes. I'm not against it, but I use them sometimes. And I will either pickle them or cook them in a particular way, so they become an addition. Tomatoes, I think they have something is different with tomatoes because what I do, I don't go and buy a commercial tomatoes grown in a supermarket. I never do this. This is terrible. This is very acid. This is completely artificial. So the tomatoes, for me, it's a fruit in England. Let's say you are in England or in France, in south of France, in Spain, something, which is between the end of July and the 15th of September. Then they are properly ripened on their vine with the sun. And they are not hybrid. It's horrible, never hybrid, and they are grown in the earth, and they are grown for real tomato seeds. So the world, in this sense, it's a vegetable which have its value. If not, it's just something I will not want to use because it's completely artificial. But I don't think too much nightshade. I'd say, well, if I have a tomatoes, how could I create a dish which nourishes me? And maybe I don't need it, you know, but maybe tomorrow morning, because I've worked like mad, I'm very tired or something, I just want to sit down with something refreshing. But if I am weak and sick and feeble, I will not do this. I will not eat tomatoes. I will eat miso soup. I don't go with my head. I go with my body. My body tells me, oh, okay, you need, maybe today you need this. And today in my soup, I bring them the tomatoes. So like that, my soup is offset. The richness of the soup, the warmth of the soup is offset by a little bit of raw tomato because outside is 26 degrees Celsius. So there is nothing theoretical. It's just I listen to life telling me what I should cook.
And the choice of herbs.
The choice of herbs is very simple. You see, if you have a garden, let's say if you have a garden, if you speak in terms of land, the food comes from land, from the land, from earth, from a garden, from the nature. So what do you have now, at least in our latitude here, I would say, what I say latitude, I would say, you know, Inverness to Marseille in France, you know, something like that, you know, and then something like that. Okay, you know, we Amsterdam and Paris and then maybe Geneva, Zurich. This kind of here now. Herbs will be plenty if you have an herb, if you have a garden, you see. So the herbs are, it's just now, rosemary, oregano, marjoram. I don't choose one or another. I just choose the abundance. The bounty of herbs is now. So I receive them with gratitude and joy, and I cook with them, and it's marvelous smell and flavors. That's where I come from. Because in October, November, herbs will come from Argentina, in a plastic bag. It's flown. So in England, if I am in London. So I won't buy them. You see? I don't. What I do in my work now in Concord, I buy plenty of them because I know they come from England. And then I dry them. Good.
All right, John, hold on just a minute because you've been amazing. You've really been, we've gotten such nice comments and I really appreciate your beauty in doing this. Yeah. All right. Any final words?
Somebody has a question, I think.
Yeah.
Somebody lift their hand. They maybe have a question.
Okay, hold on. Let me open it up. Let's.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I wanted to know more about the matter of salt. You said at one point that you didn't put salt because it would have kept all the goodness not to come out or something like that.
Yes, I said that indeed. I said that when I was preparing the vegetable stock.
Yes.
You see? So, if you take vegetable, what is a vegetable stock? So sometimes people call that a sweet vegetable drink. What is it? It's an extracting the sugars which are in vegetables and the minerals which are in vegetables,
Yes.
and helping them to go into water because they need to come out and go into water. Now, water, it's a kind, let's say water, it's a kind of a neutral environment. Yeah. So if you put a lot of salt in the water, it's more concentrated in the water than in the vegetables. So the more concentrated go always towards the less concentrated. So that means if the water is very salty, the salt in the water will go in the vegetables, and everything will be trapped in the vegetables, and you will end up with very salty vegetables. Now, if there is no salt in the water, the more concentrated element are the vegetables, because the vegetables contain natural salts, let's say.
Yeah.
And because it's less concentrated outside the water, in the water, so the minerals or the sugars and everything which is in vegetables come out into the water, and the water become a vegetable stock, a vegetable bouillon, a vegetable flavor.
Bouillon. Yeah.
And then it has a lot of richness in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't boil it over. You just simmer it, 20 minutes, and then you remove the vegetables because they're kind of dead. The vegetables now are only fibers, so you can send them to the compost. The kombu, if I use seaweed, I keep it because it's so rich in minerals that you can cook it 2 times, and it's expensive. And then your vegetables, then you stock, you can use it for your cooking. And in the soup, I've put salt in the beginning, and in my soup, really honest, in this big pot, I've put 1.5 teaspoons of salt, because the way you have seen me cooking these vegetables very gently with a drop lid, with a lid on top of the vegetables. And so everything comes out of the vegetable, diffuses. So I just need salt to adjust it, not to make it salty, because the purpose of the salt is to let food express its own nature rather than make it salty. That's why I will never put salt on the table. If you put salt on the table, that means either because you made a mistake in your cooking, but then the salt does not cook and goes into your bloodstream and in your arteries, and it's not a good idea.
We have 2 more questions, Bill, and then Lisa.
Back to the back to the tomatoes. I use nightshades sparingly usually because I want my food to be mostly alkaline. But it seemed like I heard you say you were removing the seeds, and by doing that, you removed some of the acidity. Is that true? And looking at your work, it looked like you also removed the skin.
Yes. So here we are with these things. I am born in North Africa from a Spanish, Maltese, Italian lineage. So I'm a Mediterranean freak person. We grow up around tomatoes, paprikas, all sorts of cooking and so on like that. But tomatoes, you see, if you have like now, because tomatoes, if you let's say they are natural, I'm speaking about real food coming from the earth. I think you should cook them a long time. You cook them, you stew them, and you keep them to make. And so by cooking them a long time, you reduce the acidity. If you use them like I did now, where I don't want to cook it too much, but bring the freshness of tomatoes in a summer soup to balance a little bit the energy of the pot, then indeed you are right. I peel them, I took the skin off, which I give the method in the recipe sheet, in the recipe booklet. You will receive a nice recipe booklet done by one of our assistants. They do marvelous work. And so I remove that, and then we remove the seeds, because that's where I don't want my soup to be acid. You see, so what I want from the tomato is the flesh of it to balance the heat of the stew, because it's summertime. But if I would now say I make a dish with tomatoes, I would just cook them, for a while. I will make some kind of tomato sauce concentrate, and I will add more salt and fat to balance all of this. And then I don't peel my tomatoes, like maybe in my cultures, you cook tomatoes for 8-9 hours, if you do tomato sauce. But I am always, be careful, I'm not buying my tomatoes in supermarket. They are not hybrids. They are not all the same. They are all different shape. So they are real vegetables, you see. So they have a different energy. They have and they're grown on earth. The plant is on the earth. It's not hydroponic plant, grown on water with liquid nutrients. I don't do this. Or in greenhouses with a lot of electricity cost. The tomatoes I buy are kind of ethical, and they are just nice.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good. And Lisa.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. And I'm so glad you told us where you're from and your heritage. It helps me with what I was just about to ask, and why I feel so vibed with your food and your thinking. I have Italian, Lebanese, and Palestinian ascent. And my question was about herbs. I want to get some za'atar to have for breakfast.
Yeah.
And I wondered, I was researching it and found one. I just thought, I don't know if I should make this, or if the ones I purchase, if they're a good quality, are just too dry and too dead. But I wondered if you had any thoughts on za'atar and how to get the best one.
Yes. Okay. Za'atar, of course, then, where I was born, so it's a Jewish, Arabo-Christian culture. So I'm born in a pot of the three books, the culture of the three books, as we say we say that, the three books, where we have all these incredible spices, foods, herbs and all this. Now, of course, I don't know where you live or something, but I know if I have that, I live in Switzerland, in the German part of Switzerland, really on the border of Germany. That's where I live. Also, I work in the Concord School of Culinary Art in London. So yeah, if I want za'atar, I have to go to a shop, to some kind of shop normally I go in Germany because they have incredible organic food. And so I know the brand I'm going to use. If I buy za'atar, I know a brand. I go to a brand called Sonentor. You know, they are just high rank Demeter grown Demeter production of food. So yeah, you can buy it, but you know, for everything I do, because I am the person who kind of purchase things in Concord, or I teach people. I teach people how to cook, but I teach people how to buy food, how to source food. I spend hours when I have something new in my head about teaching. I actually, outside my work in the kitchen, I spend hours researching, trying, looking, and choosing the right suppliers that I can trust. I source the food. So you have to source the food. And if you do it yourself, then you have to source all the ingredients for it, because it's more that will be more like your family recipe than the ultimate standard recipe is commercial. It has to be. You have to find, if you have some kind of grandmother or something, or some old lady or an old man in your lineage, in some family, maybe they have the secret of the perfect za'atar. You know, and then then it will speak to your real body. Yeah. Right.
Well, I think that's good. That's it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very good. I want to mention just quickly, next month, our guest is going to be Keiji Yamaguchi. I'm wondering who of you may know Keiji. He's a longtime macrobiotic friend, 60 years, I don't know, something like that, living in Philadelphia now. His occupation right now is teaching the traditional Japanese tea ceremony. He is going to speak about his personal journey to death. And I will let kind of that hopefully be a little teaser there and let you, of course, I'll be advertising more about it. Also, our cooking clutch, which is Jean has agreed to attend and to let us practice everything we learned today, and he'll join us and be there so that we can cook and ask and be together. And that's on Thursday, on the 21st of this month of September. Generally, it's the first Sunday of every month, and we need to change it because of Jewish holidays. So it's Thursday, September 21st, 5 p.m. my time, and then you figure out where you are. So, Jean, it remains for me just to thank you from the depth of my heart. I really appreciate all that you've given us.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And then, you know, so I thank you. I'm very happy. You see, that's what I do at you know, that has been my I started as a dishwasher in a community health foundation, you know, when I was 25, and then, you know, I went to Antwerp and did a lot of training in the macrobiotic center in Antwerp. Then I went to France, and I went to many places, and then in 1997, Greg Johnson, who is the director of the Concord Institute now, invited me to return and to work with the Concord Institute, and we developed quite, you know, a completely very extraordinary body of work, and in which I participated in the cooking part of it. So and that's where I get all my passion and my joy, because I am also in debt to this long training with many amazing people through the time. And now, you know, at www.concordinstitute.com, and then you can find everything we do and we teach, and maybe, you know, we don't know. It's worth a journey. All right. So thank you, Gina, to invite me. Thank you, and I will be there on the 21st, and will be. I hope people will just cook and try this and make their own version, and then I will be available for question and so on.
Do you recommend that we chop up all our vegetables and have everything prepared before the class starts? Beans cooked?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's easier. Yeah. If it's easier, if you can. That's why I made preps before the class in the recipe sheet. You see, it's easier. Then you can. Then you can do it with me. You know, my online class are always alive, and then people cook with me. You know, but yeah, it's a different kind of organization. But you can do this, and that's why you chop it in advance. You prepare in advance. You can. Because then you can go in the process. There is more, it's more emotional that way, because you can really experience your body cooking. Once you are listening, you have to cook, you know, so it's a great experience. We will, in the Concord School Culinaria, in around maybe November or something, we will start various series of online courses. So very affordable.
Great.
That will be on our website.
Great, very good.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Right. So
So I'm going to just close the recording.